We are live. Welcome to my video. This is going to be my thoughts on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Season 7, Episode 3, Alien Commies from the Future. The episode is rated TV-14, so will this video be? Like all other videos I've done on the show so far, there will be spoilers for the MCU leading up to and including it, and absolutely love the episode. Yeah, truly spectacular title. I'm really loving, and the actual title screen with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You know, I love the 1931 one as well, but yeah, the title and the like font and everything really felt like a 1950s sci-fi schlocky B flick, and I'm here for it. At some point I will review, but it's so hard to believe I've only actually done one review of one of those. Like, I really, really love several of the films from there, and I do have a DVD set. I forget exactly how many, but like, yeah, several, like maybe half a dozen or something. I will do them. I've had the DVDs for years. Yeah. And this did feel at times like one, like not so much like stylistically, but some of the ideas it's playing with, although a lot of them are, you know, also present in other episodes of the show leading up to it. I guess what I'm saying is I appreciate that they have not forgotten, you know, the 1950s schlocky sci-fi did definitely have an impact on comics. There's a little bit of both in both directions, you know, but yeah. I think that might just right, and the idea of, you know, people from the 50s thinking, oh, you know, you're like, yeah, seeing something from the future and being baffled by it. I won't give away exactly when or where, but there's at least one Star Trek story that does a similar thing. Possibly even including Area 51. I think that might cover that entire aspect. So yeah, I guess I will just briefly talk about, so by the end of this episode, they have dealt with Helios. That's not going to be a problem. So hypothetically, they might soon go to another, you know, time. You know, right now it does depend on when the chronocoms are going. But by the end of the episode, Phil MD is not to be confused with, you know, I realize when I say Phil and then MD, it sounds like I'm saying he's like a medical doctor, you know, which, yeah, he's not Dr. Phil. He's not a judgmental a-hole that way too many people listen to for, yeah. But yeah, he was hit by the electromagnetic pulse. I just want there to be an outtake of Dr. Vega. Was that his name? Whatever. The guy excitedly explaining, yo, so this is an EMP. They're gonna be a pretty cool addition to alert to. But yeah, we don't know exactly what that's going to do to him. I mean, they didn't have a choice. I'm not saying that they did, but yeah, you know, Chronocom parts. Yeah, and we see there's definitely something going on with his eye. Is it just me, or did the melting? It didn't strike me as much in the episode right before this one, I want to say it was, but this time the melting chronocom, the one we saw melt, not the one where we only saw the remains, really reminded me of, I suppose I don't want to give away exactly which, but there's at least one Terminator that dies in a fairly similar manner. Yeah, I think it was a nod. Let's see. I think that does yeah. Yeah, I right from the start, this was really fun. The thing about, we see the couple in the 50s, and she's like, you know, I'm cold, and he's like, I know, and you know how I know? Because we're connected. And typical cishet guy, he's just, you're cold, sure, have my coat. That wasn't really what she was. That was not where her head was at, and thankfully he does realize not too long after, although they are interrupted, huggus interruptus, by the, you wanted a spaceship. I don't know what your problem is. I get what hers is, because she did not think there would be a spaceship. She was just like, oh yeah, sure. I mean, I've heard worse stories to get me to, you know, get me alone with a guy, and I do also really appreciate. Yeah, she likes him. Nothing wrong with the yeah. And that is also a fun challenging of, like, back then they would have been like, you can't do that. You can't have teenagers alone together like that. But yeah, um, let's see. I think we gotta normalize women also. Yeah, women have urges as well. Absolutely nothing wrong with that, unless they're ace. I'm not trying to do ace erasure. I think that does. Yeah, the thing about, oh, maybe we should be in the air when we travel. Good to know. Live and learn. I can't help but wonder if that's going to come up in an upcoming episode. They're going to have to take off sooner to ride the wave. The tide? Um, yeah. Uh, I thought this episode did a good job with both Elena and May not quite being okay, and yeah, it's May hyperventilating and Elena not being able to run. She tries. She clearly did make an effort, and May is like, do I look like I want to talk about it? And then she's like, well, what about you? You froze. And then Elena's like, do I look like I want to talk about it? Yeah, I mean, door swings both ways. My ass. And then Daisy comes up. Well, did you find the chronocom? And then both of them in unison are like, do we look like we want to talk about it? But yeah, um, I really appreciate them actually having, like, and yeah, with Phil MD possibly, I mean, the show's really in love with keeping cast around, and I don't blame them. It's an awesome cast, so I can imagine they'll find some way to, but they're gonna probably have to do something to fix him, I feel like, and maybe that'll also mess him up in some way. Um, yeah, the thing with the using the radio to find out, is like, please tell me that's an oldies channel. Oh, the new 1955. Just yeah. And yeah, it's again like, it was a great decade for fashion and music, and not so much civil rights. I think this episode is the one I feel was the best of these first three at handling. I can the bigotry. Confronting the bigotry. I can understand. It didn't bother me, but I can understand an argument that the first two were a little too, like, people constantly saying, are you sure you want to call me that? And that's not, don't put me in a box, kind of thing. I thought this one did a really good job, perhaps in part because so much of it is just this one guy, their captive, who resists. He's like, not only did I, do I master the art of resisting. Let's see, it wasn't temptation. He can resist everything except temptation. Interrogation, that's it. I wrote the field manual. And yeah, I thought they did a good job with that. But yeah, and the diner with the, the waitress not being comfortable with, you know, the two, yeah, and we see the signs, whites, and I'm not super comfortable using the other term anymore. So yeah, the one that today we would say people of color. I think that, yeah, yeah, as yet again, great, like, sets, locations, props, costumes, makeup, all of it just looks so good and so period accurate, and just, yeah, I mean, they are picking great, settings in place and time. A place and time. Or is it place in time? Anyway. Um Sometimes singers need to enunciate more. Yes, I'm just gonna note it didn't like ruin the episode or anything. I still love it, but I don't know what was going on with the continuity on the hands when Mac and Elena were at the table in the diner, because like it alternates really awkwardly between them keeping their hands to themselves, I suppose you could say, and holding hands. Like, it's literally shot to shot. Like, there's no way that they move their hands that much in between. And it goes back and forth so much as well. That was, yeah, unfortunate. I don't want to go too hard on the director, because according to IMDb trivia, like, the director saw that the sign was not sufficiently weathered, so the director took an axe to it right there on the spot. That's awesome. So I'm not, yeah. Um, but I like that we see them in the diner for several minutes where we're like, what exactly are they doing? What are they waiting for? And then the guy walks in, and it's a great expectation subversion, because like he falls for such an obvious trick, but then he's also really good at resisting interrogation, like throughout the entire episode. So maybe he's not that worried about getting caught, because he's like, allow me to flex my muscle and resist. Yeah. But yeah, that was a great, he walks in and it's like, okay, there's our mark. And the thing with, he can't get service. So I guess this waitress just isn't really like anyone. Like, maybe she's not that racist. It's just because she also, like, there at the end, oh, we got a live one. People come by all the time and say they saw an alien. Cool detail that Area 51 was Shield, and also the thing of, all the areas of, something, and then, or was that it was Shield, and then, Daisy's like, wow, Conspiracy Me was so on point, and yeah, like 100% that this is the exact kind of thing she was, saying on the was it radio at the start of the show, in the pilot, I think that does, but yeah, he can't get any service. You got to plug it into something, and then oh, you need this, and it's like, I'm sorry, I feel like that's the first thing they teach you as a spy. Don't put anything in your body that you don't know 100% where it came from. Just because she looks like a patron doesn't mean she's not a spy. But yeah, and yeah. Let's see. I also quite liked how, over the course of the episode, I think we see it twice. He's like gnawing at the ropes. And I believe that is an accurate, yeah, you could get out like that, and he thinks that as soon as he gets out, he's just going to take over the situation, but he's completely flabbergasted by and then he cleans up after himself by all this, modern technology that he's not familiar with, stuff that won't exist for 60, 70 years, and technically doesn't exist in the real world, so yeah. But yeah, I did think that was a quite nice bit of setup and payoff. Um, let's see. Yeah, I think it's when Deke walks in, we see, right before Deke gets in there, he's gnawing at the ropes, and as soon as Deke leaves again, he starts gnawing at the ropes again. But yeah, I do really appreciate them pointing out, yeah, back then, you know, these various non-white ethnic groups, were just not really viewed as equal to us whites, which is obviously completely ridiculous. There's nothing about your ethnicity that makes you superior or inferior to anyone else. That's just something racists like to say to make themselves feel superior, because they don't have anything else that can make them feel like they're worth much of anything. Which, like, that's something you can work on. Like, my God, if I thought that, the only thing I had going for me was like the aspects of me where I conform to the majority, to the powerful. Yeesh. So, if that's you, the good news is you can do something about that. Life is all about improving yourself and the world around you, and yeah, you don't have to be a jerk. But yeah, non-whites, being seen as, equal to whites did not happen until, you know what? Yeah, I'll let you know when it does happen. Hopefully, I'm hoping it'll be sometime in my lifetime. Let's see. Yeah, and I also thought they did a good job with, the. So I already mentioned, most of the bigotry commenting is, you know, the what's the word? Dealing with the one guy whose name escapes me at the moment. I feel like I've seen the actor in something else, possibly multiple things. I liked him here. I'm pretty sure I've seen him elsewhere and liked him there as well. Rest too bad to check right now. But yeah. Um, I think that the reason they were able to get away with, and I'm not going to say the word, but you know, off screen, he angered May by referring to her by a word that is, a very offensive way to refer to people from, the East Asian, countries. I don't think they would have gotten away with using that word, having a character actually say it on screen, if not for the fact that it was May, the East Asian character played by an East Asian actress, saying it. So, yeah, I've previously expressed I really appreciate when you can get things past censors. And while I'm not saying, we should not bring back that word, I'm not, and I absolutely empathize if you watch this episode and it was upsetting to you to hear. I do really appreciate, acknowledging racism and confronting it head on. And yeah, they have to get Deke to go, and it's like, freaking white privilege, that was, yeah. And he walks in, does the slow clap. He has been watching movies, he mentioned, oh, I'll explain Days of Thunder to you later. Yeah, I bet you will. Can you just explain Saturdays of Thunder? From what I recall, that one does not have even one of the... crap. I can't believe I'm blanking on the... What was that called again? Confederate flag, in there, which I understand Days of Thunder does. I haven't watched that movie. I haven't avoided it or something. It just hasn't been on. It's been on, and I just refuse to watch it. Like Sean Locke with something or other. Crap, I forget. No, yeah, that I do. I definitely hope to live to see, the Confederate flag not being considered, socially acceptable, in general bigotry. But yeah, Confederate flags celebrating states' rights to something or other. Certainly not own human beings. That's not what they fought for. They fought for something else, and we don't have to say exactly what it was. We just, just gesture in the direction of it. It's a dog whistle. It's not supposed to be a human whistle. And then more recently, they have started just human whistling. Let's hope that once, the Trump empire has crumbled, that will be considered. Like, I look forward to when, like, it's just generally accepted as, like, how there's that one Married with Children episode where, like, a kid is about to, like, take a book and someone else says, "Don't Bundy that book." I look forward to the word, Trump being just, an insult, to be careful, don't Trump this, as soon as he's out of power, which, like, looks like it's getting closer and closer. He's really losing a lot of the people who used to love him with the, between Palantir, the big beautiful bill, and the he keeps acting like he is already just 100% a dictator. He refuses to learn. Anyway, yes. So, I like that Deke, it almost works. And the thing, what was it? I lost a bet. I was sure you were going to crack. This was a test. You passed with flying colors. And it is also like, he's not really going to fall for this, is he? Like, that would just be ridiculous. And he's like, oh, but but I'd have to be, just, yeah. But yeah, he does, he thinks that he's getting one over by saying, Helios doesn't even work. So, go tell your commie buddies, Ivan, you Stalinites can have it. Because, and he does really, that does actually help them. This is a wonderful, yeah. Let's see, I think, and it is also just funny the way that, because, like Cold War paranoia, he doesn't realize that these are people he should be working with, they're trying to help, but he's, I think that might just about, does that cover everything that happened on the jet itself, maybe? I like the thing about, May is still like a cold ninja robot. But that's like a chronicom. It would be useful, And the thing about, she didn't even react. It's like, I feel like there would be some reaction. And Daisy's like, she would be happy. That's a really nice moment. I think that might get us off the jet entirely. No Enoch this entire episode. I hope Enoch isn't lonely. Maybe they got better at bluffing over the decades. I really hope this isn't the last the episode before this one was not the last we see of Enoch. Anyway, right, I'll just briefly talk about so the what do maybe we should do this. No, that wouldn't work because obviously, I didn't know Chronicoms could be so catty to each other, but okay, it's happened before. But yeah, and they talk about, well, I want to hear from the other predictors. There are no other predictors, Einstein. So, which, like, is that really true? Because I feel like, aren't there usually 3, and then they argue over which thread to cut and when? And I think that does. But yeah, that is a very clever. Yeah. In addition to hunters and anthropologists, I think was the title of the other ones. They also have predictors who can see the future. And I think so. Yeah, the Chronocops, the two of them are still around. Just they didn't show up in the 50s, but they might show up in a later episode. I kind of hope they don't have to change face. Like after the cop lost face. But I like those two actors. I like the other one as well, but they're not coming back. Obviously, they melted. But yeah, it was a good point. This thing of what about why not self-destruct, and the explanation given. Yeah. What was the other thing? I think it covers the yeah. So once they start going undercover, yeah, very nicely done with Phil MD getting in, and your secretary hasn't been cleared. She's my boss, and yeah, pretending to be Peggy. And there was also fun. Yeah, that's the worst fake accent I've ever heard. You should tell her that. And yeah, the moment that I saw Simmons, I was like, in disguise. I was like, have you done something to your hair? But that was, yeah, and she seems to be really enjoying it. Does a much better job of the cover story than that one earlier episode where she had like ashes, and it was her and Phil. Original flavor Phil, but original recipe I think is the anyway. Yeah. Yes. So but yeah, of course she knows about Peggy Carter. Every Shield agent does, and that was also such a great, because like then the moment that Sousa shows up, and that was wonderful, great to see him again. Yeah, the moment he shows up and he's told, oh yeah, Peggy Carter's in there, you don't say, and we know, oh, this is gonna go badly. But yeah, the testing, such great stuff, and the thing with okay, so imagine a radio, but it's small and portable, and and Simmons being like, if I had an hour, I could save them decades, just yeah. And that was also great, using what's on site as a yeah. But yeah. My back. I think I'm gonna try to speed run some stuff because there's still stuff to say about this episode. You can tell really connected with yeah. I connected with the episode. Is that the phrase? Language is weird. Yes. So the sometimes it's frustrating being multilingual and mixing up grammar and words and such between the languages. In some ways, Danish and English are very similar, in some ways not. Yes, so yeah. We just got to get an emotional reaction out of them. John Wayne. Pretty overrated, am I right? Like, he sits on a horse. We get it. And the guy's like, who loves him? America does. You pass. You can move on. Just yeah. It's 100%, and I feel like original version of Phil probably does really like John Wayne. I forget if it's been mentioned, but it seems like the kind of thing that he would be into. So he's playing a part there, and he knows that in the 50s they were really into. Yeah, he was extremely popular back then. And Simmons, I don't know the reference, but it sounds like she's describing some kind of just some sad story, and the guy's like, yes, that's sad, just crying, sobbing, just yeah. Um, let's see. And at one point she's like speaking German to one, and it's like Heisenberg, and the just yeah, really really nicely done. 100%. A scientist back then working there would definitely be super fascinated by Heisenberg. Um, and they go to the bus, or he goes to the bus, and tests, and at one point he's the right, okay, so which of these actors do you prefer? And he picks the third one. Feels like, really? I'm afraid I don't know enough to say about. I think I've seen at least one movie with each of the actors mentioned, but it's been years, so I don't offhand remember. But that was a great, because yeah, like the Chronicom would be like, let's see. And and it was an unexpected answer, but it's definitely not a Chronicom answer. Like, they wouldn't know that third actor. Like, basically Phil was saying, okay, here's one super popular and one less popular. I'm thinking, or maybe it is just that the Chronicom would not know the right answer and would like essentially glitch. Like, it's like presenting a logical fallacy to a robot. And then Phil goes up and like immediate, if you've watched that movie, you can probably remember. Yeah, it's a Voight Kampf test. Wonderful Blade Runner reference. Just and yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I feel bad for the character, but the actor seems to be, she's going for it, and yeah, that is that's the kind of reaction you would have if you're like, why would I want the poor little turtle to be? What kind of sick man are you to even think such things of me? Just yeah. And he's like, I'm sorry, you passed the test. Because like yeah, it's yeah, it's a very human reaction from both of them really. Let's see, and yeah, very clever the thing. He's like, because it looks like he's just correcting his glasses, but no, he's taking a picture and sending, and now they know, Sousa, crap, that's not good. And they send in some backup. But yeah, that was also great, Agent Carter in the flesh, and she doesn't recognize him immediately. Yeah. Um, let's see, we have the yeah, they briefly talk, and he points out, yeah, she pretty quickly, they get to, oh, you're D'Souza, aren't you? And you would know that I'm not really Peggy Carter. Let's see, and that was also like, he just wanted to meet back up with Peggy. That's, yeah, it's kind of sad that he doesn't get to. It was nice seeing him be treated with more respect than he was on the show Agent Carter. Let's see. Yeah. He manages to handcuff both of them, put them in the area there, and then Daisy's in there, and he's like, you know what? It's been a long day. And, yeah, she's like, CIA, and, obviously that's not my real name. And the thing with, did Santa get my letter? And she's like, I can neither confirm nor deny that, which is, yeah, that is what what someone in that situation would say. But it is also like, I mean, I don't know the letter. We didn't, we have Shield files. We don't have CIA files, so she has no idea what's in there. But that's such a wonderful, he knew. He figured out that Hydra was, but CIA didn't take him seriously, and it went on for decades after that. I guess, yeah, like over half a century, really. But yeah, I really appreciate that. He was clearly, like, on Agent Carter, established as very smart. Makes sense that he would be able to deduce, and yeah. I think that might just about right. And they talked about like he was like now the boss of this one office, so that's really nice. He finally got, yeah, he finally got the recognition that he deserved right from the start of the show Agent Carter. I think that might just, he was always overshadowed by Jack, um, who Peggy did a wonderful verbal takedown and dissection of to his face. Anyway, that does bring us to, yeah, she says, you're absolutely right. You're more right than you know, or something along those lines. And yeah, she goes over to talk to them, and she's like, I should have some time alone with them, and he's like, that's not gonna happen. And then the alarm, so and yeah, Chronocom, Phil MD is able to break through the restraints. He just didn't, now that I've put my cards on the table, I don't think it looks like an S. Um, oh, but yeah, and they push him into the, because they got to get him out of the way. He's not gonna be. They want to keep him safe, and they can't talk him into helping them. So yeah. Let's see, and he does manage to help some in the fight between Phil MD and Chronocom. I think that does bring so yeah, the Elena and May stuff, and the female pilots actually outflew the male pilots, and they were holding up the, was it the targets, was that what she said, something along those lines, and they point out, oh, that's still sexist, but yeah, I believe what they said there was accurate. Let's see, and yeah, very clever. Like, they look like pilots, so they, it's like gas masks also, and yeah, it was like, well, if someone doesn't react to this, they're a Chronocom, very, very nicely done, and they can run in and say, we're evacuating, because yeah, they look like they're supposed to be there. Nobody was, fast enough to see that they were the ones who threw in the. That was also a great shot. The camera pulling back as the thing, like, is thrown, rolls towards the camera. Also really gnarly that the Chronocom, I forget if we've seen that before, but like the fingernail lifts and then wires come out. Because, like, hypothetically, you could just have them, like, come out of the fingertip. That wouldn't be quite as, like, upsetting. But see a fingernail come off, like, even though she doesn't react with pain, we do. We do. And let's see. I think that does pretty well. Yeah, great fight between, yeah, Elena and May fighting the Chronocom, and the wire being used, and these various, yeah, great choreography. It's a challenge to set up a 2-on-1 fight like that, and as usual, the show acquits itself quite well there. I think that does bring us to, yeah, the thing that, two Chronocoms, good to know. He is strong. I keep forgetting that. Yeah, I think that does pretty well cover the entire episode. Right, as usual, the stuff in IMDb trivia is great. I don't really have much to add that I didn't already say. But it's worth reading. I'd like to see the actress playing the Chronocom in something else. I did see, they apparently, like, several people requested the name be added separately from one another, and finally it was. She is really great. Like, yeah, absolutely works. I think that might just about be, yeah, very clever of Daisy to be, oh, go right ahead, call the CIA, admit to them that you screwed up and let two undercover, these spies infiltrate the base. If you only deal with me, nobody else has to know. Just, yeah, very, very nice. And her saying, I know what you've done, and listing stuff that would be in the Shield files. So yeah, and then she says, and those are just the things I am at liberty to acknowledge, or something like that. And it might actually be, she's like, I don't actually know anything else. Those are the things that are in the Shield files about, Daniel D'Souza. Right. Also, really cool that the actor. I'm sorry. I don't think I'm gonna try to pronounce his name because I don't want to be super offensive by completely getting it wrong. But the actor playing Daniel D'Souza, it feels like he stepped right off the set of Agent Carter and onto this, and that obviously, sadly, was not the case. That show had been off the air for 3 or 4 years, something like that. I don't know the exact month, but this episode's from 2020. Last episode of that show aired in 2016. So yeah, I think that covers everything. Let's see. Trying to think of something fun and pithy to end the video on. Yeah, it was fun seeing Deke and Mac, because they kind of had to, they it was necessary to help sell, no, they are aliens, and yeah. I mean, I do appreciate it would have been a little too on the nose if, he ran into the diner rambling about an invasion of the body snatchers and said, "They're coming. They're here.